Hello people. Hope you I hope you're having a good time, relaxing at home during the quarantine and all that. I have decided to read a book today by the name of the author's name is Robert Cormier. It's called Heroes. A soldier with no face on a mission of vengeance. You can read by the name of Mein Kampf. No, Don, not reading Mein Kampf. I'm reading a book today called Heroes. I'll read the blurb for you. If you don't know what the blurb is, it's the back of the book. It says, "What if I told him I am not the hero he thinks I am?" Maimed and disfigured while fighting in the war, young Francis Cassavant must hide both his face and his identity when he goes back home to Frenchtown. For his past holds a bitter secret that he can resolve only through his final, desperate plan to destroy the man who betrayed him as a boy, bringing Francis dishonor and guilt. Left now without a face or a future, Francis watches. He thinks of a gun in his duffel bag and waits alone for a return of another supposed hero. And I won't read too much because obviously, well, maybe you guys might want to read it in your own time. But if you guys like it, let me know. I'm also recording this at the same time, so hopefully I'll get this uploaded on YouTube because I found out how to upload. Yay! On OBS. My name is Francis Joseph Cassavant, and I have just returned to Frenchtown in Monument, and the war is over, and I have no face. Oh, I have eyes, because I can see, and eardrums because I can hear, but no ears to speak of, just bits of dangling flesh. But that's fine, like Dr. Abraham says, because it's sight and hearing that count, and I was not handsome to begin with. He was joking, of course. He was always trying to make me laugh. If anything bothers me, it's my nose, or rather, the absence of my nose. My nostrils are like two small caves. And they sometimes get blocked, and I have to breathe through my mouth. This dries up my throat and makes it harder for me to swallow. I also become hoarse and cough a lot. My teeth are gone, but my jaw is intact, and my gums are firm, so it's possible for me to wear dentures. In the past few weeks, my gums began to shrink. However, and the dentures have become loose and they click when I talk and slip around inside my mouth. Oh, they click when I talk and slip around inside my mouth. Okay, sorry about that. I have no eyebrows, but eyebrows are minor. Really. I do have cheeks. Sort of. I mean, the skin that forms my cheeks was grafted from my thighs, and has taken a long time to heal. My thighs sting when my pants rub against them. Dr. Abraham says that all my skin will heal in time, and my cheeks will someday be smooth as a baby's ass. That's the way he pronounced it. Ass. In the meantime, he said, don't expect anybody to select you for a dance with its girl's choice at the canteen. Don't take him wrong, please. He has a great sense of humor, and he has been trying to get me to develop one. I've been trying to do just that. but not having much success. I wear a scarf that covers the lower part of my face. The scarf is white and silk, like the aviators wore in their airplanes back during the First World War, over the battlefields and trenches of Europe. I like to think that it flows behind me in the wind when I walk, but I guess it doesn't matter. There is a red Sox cap on my head, and I tilt the cap forwards so that the visor keeps the upper part of my face in shadow. I walk with my head down as if I had lost money on the sidewalk and am looking for it. I keep a bandage on the space where my nose used to be. The bandage reaches the back of my head and is kept in place with a safety pin. There are problems, of course. My nose, or I should say my caves, runs a lot. I don't know why this should happen, and even the doctors can't figure it out. But it's like I have a cold that never goes away. The bandage gets wet, and I have to change it often, and it's hard closing the safety pin at the back of my head. I am wearing my old army fatigue jacket, so I am well covered up, face and body, although I don't know what I am going to do when summer comes and the weather gets hot. Right now, it's March. If I struggle sleeping well, make sure you start this up for me. Cheers. No problem, Sean. No problem. Right now it's March. Cold and rainy. And I will worry about summer when it gets here. And if I'm still around. Anyway, this gives you an idea of what I look like when I walk down the street. People glance at me in surprise. Thank you, Sean. And look away quickly, or across the street when they see me coming. I don't blame them. I have plenty of money. I received all this back pay when I was discharged from Fort Delta. The back pay accumulated during the time I spent in battle in France, and then in the hospitals. First in France, then in England. My money is in cash, $100 bills and 20s and 10s. The smaller bills I keep in my wallet, but the rest of the money is stashed in my duffel bag, which is always with me, slung over my shoulder. I am like the hunchback of Notre Dame, or Notre Dame, whichever one you prefer. My face like a gargoyle, and the duffel bag like a lump on my back. I am staying in the attic tenement, in Mrs. Belander's 3-decker on 3rd Street. She finally answered the door after I had been knocking for a while, and regarded me with suspicion, not recognizing me. This was proof that the scarf and bandage were working in 2 ways, not only to hide my ugliness of what used to be my face, but to hide my identity. As her small black eyes inspected me from head to toe, I said, "Hello, Mrs. Belander?" A further test, sorry. She didn't respond to my greeting, and I realized that she didn't recognize my voice either. My larynx, I think that's how you say it, larynx? My larynx, which Dr. Abrahams called my organ of voice, had also been damaged by the grenade, and although I can speak, my voice is much lower now, and hoarse, as if I had as if I have a permanent sore throat. I remember what Enrico Rosselli in the last hospital had said about how money talks, and I began to draw out my wallet when he said, "Veteran?" I nodded, and her face softened. Poor boy. I followed her up the 3 flights of stairs, the blue veins in her legs bulging like worms beneath her skin. The tenement is small, with low slanted ceilings, 2 rooms, kitchen and bedroom. The bed, only a cot, really, but everything very neat. Windows sparkle in the floor, gleaming with wax, the black stove shining with polish. I glanced out the kitchen window at the steeples of St. Jude's Church. Craning my neck, I had caught a glimpse between the 3-deckers of the neighborhood of the slanted roof of the rec center. I thought of Nicole Renard, realizing I had not thought of her for, maybe 2 hours. I turned to find Mrs. Belanders with her hand out, pink palm turned upwards. "In advance," she said. She had always been generous when I did her errands, and her tips paid for my 10-cent movie tickets at the Plymouth on Saturday afternoons. She had baked me a cake for my 13th birthday. That was 5 years ago, and it seems like a very long time. Anyway, I paid her my month's rent, and she wrote our receipt on the kitchen table. The table was covered in red and white checkered oil cloth, like the ones we had at home until the bad times arrived. My caves moistened, and I groped for my handkerchief. She handed the receipt. It read "Tenant" in her shaky handwriting, where my name should have been. That was fine with me. At that moment, I knew that I was really anonymous, that I wasn't Francis Joseph Cassavant anymore, but a tenant in Frenchtown. "Thank you, Mrs. Belander." Testing again. "You know my name," she said, responding this time. Not a question, but a statement. Suspicion returned to her eyes. I thought quickly. On the mailbox downstairs." I answered, guessing that her name was there. But a good guess, as she nodded her head, satisfied. "Stop later, my place," she said, her Canadian accent making the words sing. "I will make you sturdy soup to help your cold." And yes, Sean, this is Heroes. After she left, I went to the window and looked at falling rain outside. I was home again, in Frenchtown. I thought of the gun hidden away in my duffel bag and knew that my mission was about to begin. Later, I light up a candle in St. Jude's Church. The smell of burning wax and fragrance of old incense, the odors of forgiveness, fill the church. I remember the day I served as an altar boy for the Father Balthazar, and his Latin responses I had trouble memorizing. I kneel at the communion rail and say my prayers. I pray for Enrico and hope that he will finally go home and adjust to his condition. Although those are terrible words. Adjust and condition. Enrico is now without his legs, and is also missing his left arm. Thank Christ I'm right-handed, he said. But I don't think he was really thanking Christ. I also pray for the souls of my mother and her father. Oh, and my father. When I was 6, my mother died giving birth to my brother, Raymond, who lived only 5.5 hours. My father died 5 years ago of a heart attack in the rub room of the Monument Com shop. Although I always felt he really died with my mother all those years ago. I offer up prayers too for my Uncle Louise, or my Uncle Louis, whichever, who gave me a place to live until I joined the army. Sounds like a nice man, don't you think? I pray, of course, for Nicole Renard, wherever she may be. And finally, I pray for Larry LaSalle. It's hard for me to pray for him, and I always hesitate before I can bring myself to say that prayer. Now I think again of Sister Gertrude, of what Sister Gertrude taught us in 3rd grade. Words she said came from the mouth of Jesus. Pray for your enemies, for those who have done you harm. It is easy to pray for those you love, she said. But it counts more to pray for those who don't love you, that you don't love. So I offer up an Our Father, and a Hail Mary, and a Glory be, for Larry LaSalle. Then I am filled with guilt and shame, knowing that I just prayed for the man I am about to kill. Before going to bed, I stand in front of the mirror in the bathroom, where my hair is a mess as usual, thin in some spots, thick in others. For some reason my hair began to fall out in clumps my first few days in the hospital in France, and has grown back in the same way. I apply Vaseline to my cheeks. I make myself look at my caves, and the way the shape of my mouth has changed because of the dentures. I roll the dentures around in my mouth and remember what Dr. Abraham said, that I should have a better fitting pair made in a few months, when my gums stopped shrinking. He also gave me his address in Kansas City, where he will be in practice when he returns from the war. Great strides have been in cosmetic surgery, Francis, he said. One of the few benefits of war. Look me up when you've a mind to. He was tall and looked like Abraham Lincoln, and should practice his cosmetic surgery on himself, Enrico said. Enrico always had something to say about anything and everything. I sometimes think that he talked so much to cover up the pain, even when he laughed, making a sound like a saw going through wood. You could see pain flashing in his eyes. If you want to forget Nicole, he said one afternoon, when we were tired of cards, checkers, here's what you do. He put down a deck of cards. He was practicing shuffling with one hand. You get out of the army and get yourself to a home for the blind. There must be a good-looking blind girl somewhere just waiting for a nice guy like you. I was looking to see if he was joking, even when he was joking, though it was hard to tell because his voice was always sharp and bitter and the pain never left his eyes. You're a big hero, he said. A Silver Star hero. You should have no trouble finding a girl as long as she can't see your face. He tried to shake a cigarette from his pack of Luckies, and the 3 or 4 fell to the floor. A blind girl, now, is right up your alley. I am not your hero, of course. And I turned away in disgust. But later that night, lying awake, I wondered if I could really find a blind girl to love me. Ridiculous. What made me think that a blind girl would automatically fall in love with just anyone at all? Forget it, I said to Enrico the next day. Forget what? His voice was grasped from the pain in his legs that were not there anymore. He kept massaging the air that occupied the space his legs used to fill. About the blind girl. What blind girl? Never mind, I said, closing my eyes against the sight of his hand clawing the air. It's Nicole, isn't it? He said. I did not have the answer because we both knew it was true. It would always be Nicole Renard. And even though I'm home from the war, I wonder if I will ever see her again. I saw Nicole Renard for the first time in 7th grade at St. Jude's Parochial School during arithmetic. Sister Matilda was standing at the blackboard illustrating a problem in decimals where the piece of chalk in her hand broke and fell to the floor. I leaped to my feet to retrieve the chalk. We were always eager to keep in the good graces of the nuns, who could be ruthless with punishments, using the ruler like a weapon, and ruthless too, with the marks on our report cards. As I kneeled on the floor, the door opened, and Mother Margaret, the Sister Superior, swept into the classroom, followed by the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. This is Nicole Renard. She is the new student here, all the way from Albany, New York. Nicole Renard was small and slender, with shining black hair that fell to her shoulders. The pale purity of her face reminded me of the statue of Saint Teresa in a niche next to Father Balthazar's confessional in St. Jude's Church. As she looked modestly down at the floor, our eyes met, and a flash of recognition passed between us, as if we had known each other before. Something else flashed in her eyes too. A hint of mischief, as if she were telling me we were going to have a good times together. Then the flash was gone, and she was Saint Therese once more. And I kneeled like a knight at her feet, her sword having touched my shoulder. I silently pledged her my love and loyalty forever. Saint Matilda directed her to a vacant seat in the second row nearest the window. She settled herself in place, and then gave me another glance for the rest of the day. After that day, meeting our eyes, Nicole Renard ignored me, although I was always aware of her presence in the classroom or the corridor, or the schoolyard. I found it hard to glance at her, both hoping and fearing she'd return my glance and leave me blushing and wordless. She never did. Was that look that passed between us that first day a wish of my imagination? Luckily, she became friendly with Saint Marie Lacroix, who lived above us on the 3rd floor of our house on 5th Street. The girls often walked home from school together. Nicole lived one street over on the 6th, and I trailed after them, happy to be following in Nicole's footsteps. They giggled and laughed, their school books pressed against their chests, and I hoped that one of Nicole's books would fall to the ground so that I could rush forward and pick it up. Once in a while, Nicole visited Marie on the third floor, and I lurked on the piazza below, trying to listen to their conversations, hoping to hear my name. I heard only the murmur of their voices and occasional bursts of laughter. Standing at the banister in agony of love, and longing like a sentry on a lonely guard duty, I waited for Nicole to come down the stairs so that I could get a glimpse of her hair and perhaps catch her attention. She come into view. My mouth would instantly dry up, and I would look away, afraid that my voice would emerge as a humiliating squeak if I tried to say hello. A moment later, I hear her footsteps fading away, and I plunge into an agony of regret, vowing to talk to her the next time. Often in the evening, when families gathered on the Give me a second. I will. Sorry for barging in, but I recommend making the chat bigger and fitting the fire to the screen. Okay. There you go. Thank you. Thank you, Chris. Anyway, back to what I was saying. Piazzas. The men drinking beer they had brewed in the big crocks in dirt-floored cellars, and the women mending socks and knitting as they chatted. I'd seek out Marie and try to get her to mention Nicole Renard, although we were separated by the chasm of being 12 years old, when boys and girls barely acknowledged each other's existence. Marie and I spoke to each other once in a while, because we lived in the same three-decker. Sitting on the steps, we talked about everything and nothing. She liked to tell jokes. She imitated Sister Matilda, who also trouble with her digestion and tried to digest her burps behind her hand, and sometimes rushed out of the classroom, slamming the door behind her. She lets off her farts in the corridor. Marie maintained doing a quick imitation of those corridor farts. Baseball was a big topic with us. Monument has always been a baseball town, and Frenchtown teams, made up for players from the shops, often won the city championship in the Twilight Industrial League. Marie's old brother, Vincent, was an all-star shortstop for the Frenchtown Tigers, and my father, whose nickname was Lefty, had always been an all-star catcher for the same team years before. I kept wondering on how to bring Nicole Renard into the conversation. She had no brothers and sisters about whom I could inquire. I didn't know whether she liked to read or who her favorite movie stars might be. Finally, I plunged. We had fallen into a comfortable silence, listening to the men arguing mildly about the red socks, and I said, "Nicole Renard seems very nice," feeling the colour creeping into my cheeks. Marie turned and fixed her eyes on me. "Yes," she said. I had said nothing more. Marie didn't speak either. My father's voice reached us with his old refrain, how selling Babe Ruth to the Yankees had brought a curse upon the team. "Do you like her?" she asked, finally. My breath came fast. "Who?" An An exasperated sigh escaped her. Nicole! Nicole Renard! I don't know, I said, cheeks incinerating now. I didn't know what to do with my hands. Then why did you ask about her? I don't know, I said again, feeling stupid and trapped, knowing I had fallen into Marie Lacroix's clutches, and that she thought that she probably blackmailed me forever. Finally, I threw myself on her mercy. Yes, I said, I like her. Astonished at the relief I felt as the admission I wanted to shout from the rooftops. I love her with all my heart. Please don't tell her, I pleaded. Your secret is safe with me, Marie said. But was it? Yet, deep within me, was the knowledge that I wanted to hear tell Nicole Renard that I loved her. 3 days later, Marie and Nicole again passed time together on the piazza above me. I sat reading The Sun Also Rises, realizing that Ernest Hemingway seldom used by 3-syllable words, which made me wonder if anyone, including me, could become a writer. When I thought Nicole making noises of departure, her footsteps crossing the floor as she called "Bye-bye" to Marie, I closed the book and perched it on the banister, positioning myself where it would be possible for her to ignore my presence. Hearing her footsteps on the stairs, I curled up my legs around the rungs of the banister. She came into view. I didn't look away this time. Don't fall off, Francis, she said, as she passed quickly by and went down the stairs. I was so startled by her voice, by the fact that she had actually spoken to me, that I almost did fall off the banister. Regaining my balance, I realized that she had actually spoken my name. Don't fall off, Francis. My name had been on her lips when I winced in an agony of embarrassment. Why hadn't I answered her? Does she now think that I'm stupid? To start a conversation? Had she merely been teasing me? Or had she been really afraid that I might fall off the banister? The questions left me dazed with wonder. I never knew that that love could be so agonizing. Finally, the big question: had Marie told Nicole that I liked her? I never learned the answers to those questions. Marie and I talked about Nicole again. She was always coming and going in a hurry, and I was too timid to try to corner her. Summer vacation started, and everyone fell into different routines. Nicole didn't visit our 3-decker anymore. I caught sight of her sometimes on 3rd Street, going in or coming out of a store, and my breath caught. I saw her strolling in the convent grounds with Sister Matilda, one hot summer afternoon. One evening, as I hung out in the front of Laurea's drugstore with Joey LeBlanc and some other kids, I saw her walking across the street, her white dress a blur in the darkening evening. She looked our way and waved. I waved back, thrilled at her attention. Joey also waved, calling out, "Hey, Nicole, you've got a run in your stocking," laughing at what he thought was witty remark. He couldn't see her stockings, at a distance of course. Nicole paused, tilted her head, as if puzzled. Joey burst into more laughter. Nicole walked on, quickening her step. "You've got a big mouth," I told Joey, turning away in disgust. "What's the matter with you?" he said. Or asked, I should say. I didn't answer. I wondered whether she'd be waving at Joey LeBlanc or me. I feel like a spy in disguise as I walk in the streets of Frenchtown, hidden behind the scarf and the bandage, making my way through the chilled morning, pausing on the corners, watching the people come and go, and then moving on when I feel like their eyes on me filled with either pity or curiosity. I try to avoid her eye contact with people I know, like Mr. Molnier, the butcher, who stands in the doorway of his meat market in his blood-stained apron, and Mrs. St. Pierre, who scowls her disapproval at him as she passes. I have places to visit now, and I have returned and won. All kinds of rumors about her, Francis. She began to stay at home, didn't come out of the house except for 5:30 for the 5:30 morning mass, the nuns' mass, that nobody else in their right mind ever goes to. She was like, he gestured with a cigarette, trying to find the right word, a hermit. Then she was gone. Her and her family left Frenchtown without telling anybody, gazing at me curiously. "Haven't you heard from her?" "No," I answered. He squinted at me, curiosity remaining in his eyes. "You're about 15, right? How did you get in the army?" I told him about forging my birth certificate. He didn't ask why I joined, and I didn't expect him to. Everyone wanted to go to war in those days to defeat the Japs and the Germans. After a while, we fell into a tired end of a long day silence. Then he left to rejoin his outfit, walking off into the twilight. He turned, and we saluted each other, in a half-joking way, grinning, because we didn't think of ourselves as soldiers, but only two French town boys in uniform. And I had not yet killed anybody. As I turned to go back down to the steps at 212 6th Street, the front door swings open to reveal a woman in a damp apron, a broom in her hand, looking at me with narrow, suspicious eyes. "You want something?" she asks. I wonder if she was using the broom as a weapon for protection, and don't blame her. I have to keep reminding myself how I look to other people. "Do you know where Renards went?" "Do you know where the Renards went?" Not expecting an answer, but hoping the question provides me with respectability. "What?" she asks, frowning as she clutches the broom in front of her. The scarf has muffled my voice, of course. "The Renards," I say, trying to pronounce the words distinctly. "Where are they?" "All gone," she says, her voice so doleful. "All gone." She begins sweeping the doorstep as if she intends to sweep me away too. Her words chase me down the steps into the street. "All gone. All gone." Mrs. Belander is waiting when I return to the 3rd Street, 2 bags of groceries from Hinault's market in my arms. I have stocked up on cocoa and bread and strawberry, jam, and a variety of Campbell's soup in red and white cans, mostly tomato, and bean and pea soup. Everything's soft because my gums are tender, and it's hard for me to chew. I have also bought 2 bottles of pasteurized milk, a pound of butter, and a wedge of cheddar cheese, which I will store in a small electric refrigerator on the counter upstairs. I can keep going on a minimum of food because I lost my appetite somewhere in France, and eat only to sustain myself for a while. Mrs. Belander holds a deep pot in her hands and says, "I'll carry it up for you. The black bean soup I made." We climb the stairs together. In the tenement, I place the groceries on the counter, and she puts the pot on the stove. "No boil," she says, "just heat." Then she turns to me. "You didn't say your name." Not quite an accusation, but as if her feelings had been hurt. Here is the point, where my life becomes a lie. "Raymond," I tell her. "Here's the name of my dead brother. Beaumont," I add. My mother's name before she married my father. And apologies, I can't speak French Canadian. "Paris et mère? Marie?" I think that's how you pronounce it. She asks. I am ready to give those answers. In Canada. In my mind, I have substitute Haven for Canada. We lived in Boston before, but they went back home to Canada when the war where the war came. The truth is what my Uncle Louis, who never became a citizen, returned to Canada. While I was in the army, I see the question in her eyes, and am quick to answer. I met a Frenchtown boy in the service, Norman Rochelau. He told me about Frenchtown. He made it sound like a nice place to live. Doubt flashes in her eyes, and I make a quick addition to my story. My mother and father are waiting for me in Canada, but I have no report to Fort Delta for tenements for a while. It scares me, how easy it is to lie. "Vous parlez français?" she asks. I shake my head. No. I can understand French because of the 8 years with the sisters at St. Jude's, but have never been able to speak the language correctly. She sighs heavily, studies my scarf and bandage for a long moment, and murmurs, "Poor boy." Again, as shuffles towards the door. The tenement is heated by the black stove in the kitchen, fed by a glass oil jug that I will have to fill every day or two. From the big metal barrel in the backyard, the stove throws heat only in a small area of the kitchen, and the rest of the tenement is damp with cold, even though winter has gone. I make myself a cup of cocoa, delaying the moment of going to bed, despite the cold. The clock on the wall, in the shape of a banjo, tells me it is 25 minutes after 11, which means that a long night stretches ahead. I long for sleep, my eyes raw and burning, but I know that the dreams will begin when I close my eyes. and drift off. And that's all I'm gonna read for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys like it, feel free to check out the book. It's called Heroes. It's made by Robert Cormier. He's made another book in the past called The Chocolate War, and I recommend giving this a go. I'll only join for 2 minutes. Oh, I'm sorry, Tam. I'm sorry, Tam. You have to catch me on the next session. Don't worry, I'm recording it so you can watch it when it goes on YouTube. Have a lovely night, guys, and take care.